Joker. The Joker is one of the most unforgettable villains in comic book history, a true icon of chaos. He first appeared in DC Comics on April 25th, 1940 in a Batman comic. Originally, the plan was to kill him quickly, but his twisted charisma made him the perfect nemesis for Batman, securing his place as a cornerstone of the DC universe. He was created by Bill Finger, Bob Kane, and Jerry Robinson, inspired by a hauntingly grinning character in the 1928 film The Man Who Laughs. The Joker's story has been told in many ways, but one version stands out. He started as a struggling comedian named the Red Hood. Desperate for money to support his pregnant wife, he joined a heist at a chemical plant. Things went south when Batman intervened, and the Red Hood fell into a vat of chemicals. When he emerged, his skin was bleached white, his hair turned green, and his lips became blood red. That horrifying transformation shattered his sanity, giving birth to the Joker. But here's the kicker. The Joker himself admits he's an unreliable narrator. If I'm gonna have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice. He once said, some stories claim he was a mob enforcer or a professional criminal. One even suggests 3 Jokers, each representing different facets of his madness. The truth, it's as elusive as the Joker's next move. What makes the Joker terrifying is his unpredictability. One moment, he's a clown pulling deadly pranks. The next, he's a sadistic mastermind. He's brought unimaginable pain to Batman's life, paralyzing Barbara Gordon, killing Robin, Jason Todd, and tormenting Gotham City with chaos. Yet for all his evil, the Joker is oddly compelling. He doesn't just fight Batman, he obsesses over him. For the Joker, Batman isn't an enemy. He's a playmate in a deadly game. Visually, the Joker is as striking as his personality. He's usually decked out in purple suits, green hair, and that grotesque, ever-present grin. Sometimes he's extra creepy, like when he wore his skinned face strapped on like a mask. Despite his madness, the Joker has surprising limits. In a crossover with Marvel, he turned on the Red Skull after learning he was a Nazi, saying, "I may be a criminal lunatic, but I'm an American criminal lunatic." Still, over time, his ruthlessness has grown. Whether it's murder, mayhem, or just making Batman's life miserable, the Joker thrives on anarchy. In short, the Joker is chaos incarnate, a villain as horrifying as he is fascinating. With him, you never know what's coming, which makes him unforgettable. Bane. Here's the story of Bane, one of Batman's most dangerous foes. He's not just a brute with muscles, he's a calculated genius with a tragic backstory and a relentless drive. Bane was born into misery on the island of Santa Prisca. His father's life sentence was passed on to him, forcing Bane to grow up in the brutal prison of Peña Duro. Instead of breaking under harsh conditions, he thrived. Bane spent his time reading every book he could find, building his body in the prison gym, and honing his survival skills. By age 8, he committed his first murder to protect himself. His only companion was a teddy bear named Osito, which secretly housed a knife for emergencies. Eventually, Bane became the king of the prison. The guards noticed his potential and volunteered him for an experiment with a dangerous drug called venom. While it killed others, Bane survived, gaining superhuman strength but becoming dependent on the drug. He needs regular doses every 12 hours to avoid severe withdrawal. Bane eventually escaped prison with a plan: conquer Gotham City by defeating Batman. He viewed Batman as a symbol of fear, much like the Bat Demon haunting his dreams since childhood. Instead of attacking head-on, Bane released all the inmates of Arkham Asylum. While Batman spent months recapturing them, Bane waited for his moment. Exhausted, Batman was no match for Bane in their confrontation in the Batcave. Bane broke Batman's back, forcing Bruce Wayne into retirement. After defeating Batman, Bane ruled Gotham's underworld briefly, but was eventually overpowered by Batman's successor, Jean-Paul Valley. Bane went through rehabilitation, kicked his venom addiction, and sought redemption. At one point, he even helped Batman take down a criminal ring. Moreover, Bane later learned he might share a father with Batman, Thomas Wayne, but DNA tests proved otherwise. This journey led him to discover his birth father, the villain King Snake. Bane ultimately saved Batman's life, earning a clean slate and a second chance. Bane's power isn't just his strength, it's his mind. He's a genius strategist, fluent in multiple languages, and a skilled hand-to-hand fighter. Thanks to Venom, he can lift up to 15 tons, withstand major injuries, and recover quickly. Even without Venom, Bane's natural strength and durability are remarkable. Overall, Bane's biggest challenge has been his reliance on Venom, though he has overcome the addiction. His psychological fear of the Bat from his nightmares lingers, adding a layer of vulnerability to this otherwise unstoppable force. And there you have it. Bane, the brilliant, brutal, and complex villain who tested Batman like no other. Mr. Freeze. And now let me tell you about the frosty friend who's always up to no good, Mr. Freeze. This isn't your typical Freeze story with all the tear-jerking tragedy. Nope, in the Batman cartoon, Victor Freeze is all about revenge, greed, and chilling Gotham to its core. Victor started as an ordinary thief robbing banks and snatching diamonds, but one fateful heist changed his life forever. While trying to escape Batman, he stumbled into a cryonics lab. Things got messy. A pod, an exposed wire, and an accident left him permanently altered. His blood froze solid, mutating him into a being that couldn't survive without freezing temperatures. His skin turned icy white, his eyes glowed red, and he became a walking popsicle of vengeance. Further, locked in a sub-zero state, Freeze forced a scientist to make him a suit that could keep him alive and enhance his powers. The result? A menacing black cryosuit with icy details, tubes, and panels gave him a frosty, muscular look. With his icy abilities, Freeze could generate ice blasts, create frozen bridges, and even turn Gotham into his winter wonderland. Now, don't expect a sob story here. This version of Mr. Freeze isn't trying to save his wife. He's just a diamond-obsessed villain with zero compassion for anyone else. Cold, calculating, and aggressive, Freeze is all about getting what he wants, no matter who gets in his way. Throughout his icy escapades, Freeze faces off with Batman multiple times. He freezes ships, steals rare diamonds, and even teams up with Firefly to blanket Gotham in eternal winter. But partnerships never last long with Freeze. He's not a team player. One memorable clash has Freeze racing the Penguin to find hidden treasure under the sea. Spoiler alert, Batman shows up and spoils the fun. In another adventure, Freeze gets tangled up in a mass kidnapping of Gotham's villains, only to freeze half of them himself accidentally. Classic Freeze. But it's not all about Batman. Freeze also tangles with big names like Lex Luthor and Superman, even trying to take down the Man of Steel by freezing him. It doesn't end well for Freeze, of course. Batman always finds a way to put this icy foe on ice. Unlike other versions of Mr. Freeze, this one isn't driven by loss. He's pure, relentless evil with a penchant for diamonds and destruction. Love or hate him, one thing's for sure, when Freeze shows up, things are about to get cool in Gotham. Penguin. Next up is one of Gotham City's most infamous villains, who waddled his way from ridicule to riches. Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, better known as the Penguin. Now, this guy isn't your typical deranged lunatic running around Gotham. He's a classy crook with a sharp mind, a love for birds, and a flair for chaos. Oswald's story starts with a rough childhood, teased for his short stature, round belly, and nose that earned him the nickname Penguin. He grew up as the outcast of his wealthy family. His mother, overprotective after losing her husband to pneumonia, made him carry an umbrella everywhere, an odd quirk that would later become his trademark. But Oswald wasn't just staggering through life feeling sorry for himself. No, sir. He turned his smarts and love for ornithology, that's bird science by the way, into a career in crime. Armed with his genius-level intellect, a fleet of henchmen, and high-tech umbrellas, Penguin became a criminal mastermind. His umbrellas? Oh, they're not just for show. Some shoot bullets, others spew gas, and a few even let him glide like a bird. What makes Penguin so dangerous is his brain. He's a strategic thinker, always 10 steps ahead. From running a nightclub, the infamous Iceberg Lounge, as a front for his shady dealings to leading Gotham's criminal underworld, Penguin knows how to play the game. He's also an incredible leader, commanding gangs, villains, and even birds with a mix of charm and intimidation. Now, let's talk about weaknesses. Penguin isn't exactly a physical powerhouse. He's short, not strong, and relies heavily on his gadgets and goons. Batman often uses this to his advantage, exploiting Oswald's overconfidence and obsession with wealth and status. Despite his sharp mind, Penguin's pride and need to prove himself often land him back in Arkham, or a regular prison since he's technically sane. Personality-wise, Penguin is a fascinating mix. He puts on airs of being a refined gentleman, always dressed in a tuxedo, top hat, and monocle. But don't let the aristocratic charm fool you. He's ruthless and will do whatever it takes to get what he wants. He's not as psychotic as Joker, or as animalistic as Killer Croc, but he's every bit as dangerous. Whether using trick umbrellas, scheming from the shadows, or trading secrets with Gotham's elite, Penguin proves that brains can be just as deadly as brawn. So next time you're in Gotham, watch. You never know when this bird will strike. Double Face / Two-Face. Here's the deal with Two-Face. He's one of Gotham's most complex and tragic villains. Once a shining beacon of justice, Harvey Dent was Gotham's youngest and most promising district attorney. Charming, handsome, and dedicated, he worked alongside Batman to clean up the city's streets. But fate, or rather a splash of acid from mob boss Sal Maroni, had other plans. During a trial, Maroni hurled acid at Harvey, scarring one side of his face and, more importantly, fracturing his psyche. That's how Harvey Dent became Two-Face. Beyond this, Two-Face is obsessed with duality, good versus evil, justice versus revenge. His iconic two-headed coin reflects this obsession. One side is pristine, representing the good Harvey, while the other is scarred, mirroring his darker side. Every major decision he makes hinges on a coin flip. Heads, he does something good. Tails, things get ugly. This compulsion represents the constant battle between his two identities, the kind-hearted Harvey and the vengeful Two-Face. Growing up, Harvey didn't have it easy. His abusive father contributed to his suppressed mental health issues, including dissociative identity disorder, but Harvey's work ethic pushed him to rise above his circumstances and excel in law. Known as Apollo for his good looks and charisma, he earned respect and admiration. Unfortunately, the scars weren't just physical, they unleashed a darker side Harvey could never fully control. Above all, Two-Face's crimes are often theatrical and themed around the number 2. Whether he robs a second bank or commits 2 crimes at once, his fixation on symmetry makes him predictable yet dangerous. His scarred face isn't just for show. His dual-colored suits emphasize his split personality, and his twin pistols make him deadly in combat. Though he's no superhuman, Two-Face is incredibly smart. He was once a skilled lawyer and remains a master strategist. Batman's training makes him an excellent detective and a decent fighter. He's also a crack shot with any firearm. However, his reliance on the coin is both his strength and weakness. It forces him to act and limits his choices. Attempts to heal his scars and his fractured mind rarely stick, even when his face is repaired. The psychological scars remain. Harvey Dent may surface briefly, but Two-Face always comes back. Despite his villainy, there's something undeniably tragic about Two-Face. He's not entirely evil, and that sliver of Harvey Dent lurking within makes him one of Batman's most haunting adversaries. His story isn't just about crime, it's about the fragile line between justice and vengeance and how easily it can be crossed. Poison Ivy. Dr. Pamela Isley, better known as Poison Ivy, is Gotham City's seductive eco-terrorist with a deadly green thumb. First sprouting in Batman #181, Ivy's mission is simple: save the planet from humanity's destruction. Her methods, however, not so friendly. This brilliant botanist turned meta-human uses mutant plants, mind-controlling pheromones, and toxic kisses to get her way. Ivy's love for the environment runs deep, and she's willing to do whatever it takes, even breaking the law to protect her beloved greenery. Once a promising scientist, Pamela Isley was betrayed by her professor, Mark Legrande, during a scheme involving stolen ancient herbs. He tried to poison her, but the plan backfired. Instead of dying, Pamela developed immunity to toxins, poisons, and diseases. The incident marked the birth of Poison Ivy, a woman no longer tied to humanity's rules, now dedicated to the greens. Her first big Gotham caper, stealing the spotlight from lesser female villains, Tiger Moth, Silken Spider, and Dragonfly, to cement her status as Gotham's #1 femme fatale. Even Batman wasn't immune to her charms, though his willpower managed to lock her behind bars. Ivy is the ultimate seductress. With her stunning looks and pheromone powers, she manipulates anyone, man or woman, to achieve her goals. But underneath the charm is a dangerous sociopath. Ivy loves plants like they're her children and will kill anyone who threatens them. Her disdain for humanity, particularly men, stems from a series of betrayals in her past. There's one exception to her cold-hearted ways: Harley Quinn. Their bond is unique, shifting between best friends, partners in crime, and lovers. While Ivy can be manipulative, she genuinely cares for Harley, often urging her to leave the toxic Joker. Harley's playful chaos even softens Ivy's stern demeanor, making their relationship one of Gotham's most fascinating partnerships. Despite this, Poison Ivy's abilities make her one of Batman's most dangerous foes. Thanks to the toxins in her blood, her kiss can kill or control, and she's immune to poisons, even Joker's venom. She's a genius botanist who creates lethal plant-based toxins and hybrids. In some versions, Ivy can control plants with her mind, grow monstrous creations, and breathe carbon dioxide like a plant. Her weaknesses? Ivy's humanity occasionally surfaces despite her powers, especially around Harley or when her plans backfire. Also, her reliance on plants means cutting her off from nature, which weakens her abilities. Poison Ivy is more than a typical Gotham criminal. Her environmental crusade, complex personality, and layered relationships make her a unique addition to Batman's rogues gallery. Whether manipulating Gotham's villains or sparring with the Dark Knight, Ivy always leaves a lasting impression, as deadly as captivating. Scarecrow. Dr. Jonathan Crane, also called Scarecrow, is a villain who doesn't just strike fear into Gotham, but studies it. Created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, Scarecrow first appeared in World's Finest Comics #3 in 1941. Inspired by Ichabod Crane from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, his Scarecrow costume, lanky frame, and eerie tactics make him one of Batman's creepiest foes. One thing to be clear here is that Jonathan Crane wasn't always a villain. He was a brilliant psychology professor obsessed with understanding fear, but his methods were questionable. He once fired a gun in a lecture hall to prove a point. This stunt got him fired, and his peers mocked him for his odd ways. Bitter and ostracized, Crane turned to crime, not for money, but for his twisted research into fear. By donning his Scarecrow persona, he made Gotham his lab. Scarecrow's look was simple in his early days: a tattered hat, trench coat, and mask. His weapon of choice? A Tommy gun. Over time, he ditched the gun and leaned into his real weapon, his mind. In addition, Scarecrow's genius lies in his fear toxin, a chemical cocktail that turns your worst nightmares into vivid, paralyzing hallucinations. In its strongest form, his toxin can cause heart attacks or permanent psychosis. Even the mighty Batman isn't immune, and Superman, he'd need kryptonite-laced gas to resist it. Scarecrow delivers this terror using skull-shaped sprayers or snap-open toxin capsules. He's also cooked up pheromones that can make birds attack command, a nod to his creepy childhood hobby of scaring crows. Also, Crane is more than a chemist. He's a master manipulator. He knows how to find people's deepest fears and exploit them. With his background in psychology, he can recite nearly every phobia by name and use words alone to drive people to madness. Surprisingly, Scarecrow is also skilled in combat. He uses his lanky build in a fighting style he calls violent dancing, inspired by Ichabod Crane's moves in Sleepy Hollow. He's even handled weapons like scythes and pitchforks. Oh, and for a brief stint, he wielded a Sinestro core ring, turning fear into solid constructs. Scarecrow's biggest weakness is his obsession with fear. It drives everything he does, sometimes clouding his judgment. Ironically, Crane has his phobias. He once feared crows after an attack in his family aviary, and even developed a fear of bats after crossing paths with Batman. Scarecrow isn't just about fear, he is fear. With his chilling toxin and psychological genius, he makes Gotham's bravest citizens tremble. Whether he's terrifying Batman or proving fear's power, Scarecrow is a villain who'll haunt your dreams. Riddler. Edward Nygma, commonly known as Riddler, is a villain obsessed with riddles, puzzles, and games. First appearing in Detective Comics #140 in 1948, this green-clad trickster has become one of Batman's most cunning foes. Edward's crimes always come with a twist. He leaves riddles behind as clues for the Dark Knight to solve. Though not the strongest villain in Gotham, he more than makes up for it with his genius-level intellect and knack for mind games. Edward's love for puzzles started when he was young, but his obsession took root in a troubled childhood. His father, envious of Edward's intelligence, accused him of cheating and beat him. Desperate to prove himself, Edward grew obsessed with truth, leading to his love for riddles. This obsession eventually spiraled into madness. Furthermore, Edward worked at a crooked carnival booth as a young man, challenging people to solve rigged puzzles for prize money. Bored with small-time cons, Edward decided to up his game. Donning a green suit covered in question marks, he became the Riddler, using his intellect to outsmart Gotham's finest. Interestingly, the Riddler thrives on being the smartest person in the room. He's a master strategist, puzzle maker, and manipulator, often putting even Batman's detective skills to the test. His elaborate death traps, rigged games, and mind-bending riddles make him a true mastermind. But Edward doesn't stop there. He's also skilled with engineering and technology, crafting gadgets like his question mark-shaped cane, which doubles as a weapon. It can deliver electrical shocks, bypass security, and even create holograms. He also uses a rope gun and exploding puzzle pieces to keep things interesting. Despite his genius, Edward isn't above theatrics. He has two loyal henchwomen, Query and Echo, who help him execute his schemes. Speaking of his powers, the Riddler's greatest strength is his mind. His detective skills are nearly on par with Batman's, and he's an expert escapologist inspired by Houdini himself. He's even managed to amass a fortune through legal and illegal means. However, his obsession with proving his superiority is his Achilles heel. Edward has to leave clues behind, making it easier for Batman to catch him, and while his riddles are brilliant, his ego often leads to overconfidence. To sum up, the Riddler's love for the spotlight means he's always looking for his next challenge. Whether it's robbing Gotham's elite or setting elaborate traps for the Caped Crusader, he thrives on outsmarting his opponents. With his puzzles, gadgets, and flair for drama, Edward Nygma isn't just a villain, he's a game that Batman can never stop playing. So here's the riddle. If the Riddler is always one step ahead, why does he always end up behind bars? Let us know in the comments below.